Hey, ho, hey, lo, hey. Good morning. It's Lorelei, and I'm here doing a kind of heartfelt, inspired live. Last night I did a live, and I talked a lot more about my background, and there's some stories that I connected to, and the plan is to take that live, which was almost an hour and a half, and be able to go back and mark the times and mark some of those stories to, if you want to explore, to go to different episodes of my life or things that you may connect to. The idea behind this is that there will be some things that you will connect with, probably some things that you won't, and you get to, pick and choose. This is a buffet. This is not a cult. This is not a high mind control. This is genuinely and honestly me building the kind of contribution online and in life that respects myself and honors myself and respects and honors you. That this is a diverse universe, and the diversity in nature and in humankind and even in the planets is essential, integral to life. Not only is our body constantly changing, new cells are ending a life cycle and dying off. Brand new cells are beginning their life cycle and starting off fresh and new. They go through a whole cycle and then they die. If this process does not happen within our bodies, what happens? What happens? We've all had the stagnancy, and then stagnancy in our body, in our cells, in our fluid, in our blood, right? We've had colds. We've had the flu. We've had infections, bladder infections, all kinds of things. So I just want to start there. I start with where you're at. Some of the things I talk about may be beyond your comprehension, may seem like wild stories. And I just want to preface this in saying that when my children were very little, I witnessed them doing things and noticing things, such as when I learned an energetic technique. My shamanic teacher insisted that we learn and be initiated into a particular energetic technique. Now, that technique was not Native American. It was not something in their lineage. They did not have permission to teach non-Native people, is how we were explained that tradition. And however, for them to be able to transmit the energy, for them to be able to take us into training, they need to teach us from the beginning to the end, since we were non-Native, right? So this is what they had come up with while they were not able to teach us. Just say it like that. It's kind of like if you have a recipe that's been handed down from generation to generation. It's an awesome apple pie, and your relatives are like, okay, there's a special way you make it, there's a special way you bless it, there's certain things about it, and you cannot sell this to other people. You cannot give this away. This is something that we specially make and we will pass on in our lineage. So it was like that. It was like I like to use metaphors like cooking. I like to use metaphors like sports. I like to use metaphors like nature, rather than saying a particular person, because you can then take that metaphor and translate it into your life. And just like a well-written book, there are many layers to it. And the layers are within ourselves, and for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, right, and nose to smell, can see that. So it's like every time you pick up this one particular book, you're like, wait, I read this last year, and now this information it's different because I'm different. What's different? Is the book different? No, I'm different. So I bring my expanded awareness. I bring forth my change in belief systems. I'm changed. So this is a kind of vibe we're creating here, right? And I realized that in creating our Radiate Life with Lorilei community, this is my sigil that I use, or my mandala that I use for healing. I have used it. It was created for me specifically by another intuitive healer in 2015 to create that inner sanctum of sacredness to empower individuals, but especially moms. It says Radiate Life with Lorilei, intuitive teacher and mentor for the mom and the entrepreneur, attuning our senses into superpowers. So 2015. Yeah, 2015. So that's the beginning little snippet. Like when you read a book, you're like, oh, that book's just different. Is that book different? No, that book's not different. You're different. You bring your changes or not changes to that moment and have that awareness, and no one can take it from you, and no one can give it to you either. So this always starts with you. And in order for us to be able to build a community and collaborate on projects, we have to be responsible for our own self. We have to be responsible for our own thoughts, emotions, and energy. And just because other people can't see it or we can't see it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Okay? Emotions. You can see actions. You can see somebody giving you a bouquet of flowers. Okay? But just because they give you a bouquet of flowers, does that mean that they love you? Maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe they're giving you flowers on Valentine's Day to make themselves look better, but not out of love, right? So just because there's an action, you don't automatically know what is behind it. And the best way to know what is behind it is to intentionally create that purpose, create that reason, to say a prayer, to say a blessing, to even say forgiveness. I'm sorry, in that moment I said some words that now I know were very hurtful. I was hurt and I didn't mean to take that out on you, but thank you for being present, and I would want no harm to come to you, and I'm taking that insight and that information into myself so that I can be informed. So rather than being like forgiveness, like, oh, you need to forgive me because I did that and I'm all tied up unless you forgive me, it's like, no, I'm going to acknowledge you and acknowledge myself with love and peace. It was not the greatest of myself. So these are some of the things I want you to start thinking about. And I want you to thinking about the process of you are the only vote. Because having had more than 25 years experience in community, this present lifetime, this life stream, I've been in many communities, and I think last night I gave you a good kind of a taste of my early years and about how my life has never been in automatic. Like I've never found that right community and stayed there forever, right? I've never found that right place and continued to stay there. I like, even in centers that grow and evolve, there is always something, and many times my own inner feelings and my own inner guidance would say to me, because if you stay here, you will not experience the things you came here for. And though I had really not a clue what that was, like visually or in my own mental being, I could feel it in my spirit, and I could feel that wanderlust inside, really not always knowing where that came from. So along those lines, I want to share this song. This is one of the ways in building community and building healing, is coming together and making yourself sacred, making yourself whole, living in gratitude. It starts with the breath when you wake up and the breath when you go to bed, and all the breaths in between. And so I want to share this experience with you because, as I had said, I was part of a community that we did many different practices. And one of the practices that we did and we were all involved in was, again, this Native American drumming and healing and learning things, again, being taught not in the traditional Native American ways. But being connected to many cultures is the best way that I could just say that for today. So I don't want anyone to misconstrue that I would be saying that I was taught Native American teachings in a Native American way. I did and have received other kinds of training that is shamanic in nature, that it is universal in nature, and that it is specifically taught by a native who invited me to come in and to connect with the beautiful energy and to yeah, so this is where I am today, based upon my love, my experiences, my discipline, and my diversity. So we have to, first thing, if you want to be a part of that community, is really being willing to take the mirror and look at yourself. Because when we want to get together in a community and we want to collaborate, it's important that I know that I'm working with other individuals that are taking care of themselves, that are looking at their blind spots, that have things in their life that they're wanting to grow, and that they're willing to put their own authority out into the world. Because I need to be working with people who know that, let's say there's an idea for a project in the community. I'm like, I love that. If someone comes up with an idea, I want them to have that idea. It's not like my idea is the only idea. But let's say that that particular idea doesn't really fit with what we have going on for that year, or we have resources dedicated in different places, but I still want to support that idea. And so I need to know that I have an individual that has their own authority, that if I say, that isn't going to work with what we're doing here, but I want you to take that idea, how can we support you? Even if it's through our prayers, even if it's through any kind of hands and heart and sharing the message or giving them a platform, whatever it may be, that person doesn't say, oh gosh, Lorelei didn't see the value in my idea, and who's Lorelei to be the judge of me, and these are things that can happen. It happens. I've got kids. I've had almost done with 3 teenagers and moving into young adulthood, and it happens, especially during that teenage years, and especially if you didn't have parents that were like, okay, you're going to make your mistakes. We know that. So, but a mistake is not a mistake if you learn from it. That's called a learning experience. It's only a mistake if you didn't self-reflect, take the good parts out of it, see where you want to arrive, and move on. And that's ultimately what we're here for, right? At least in my life. So anyway, so part of doing that is really building the experiences of knowing who you are and what your perception is and what your awareness is. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 things along with that in awareness. One, I'm going to do so I was in this community, and my sister-in-law, so it's my sister-in-law, and I heard over the years people call their in-laws their in-loves. So she generally was my sister-in-law, and this actually is around the time of her passing. Her birthday was February 4th, and she passed away. And when she passed away, see, my youngest is 16, and he was born in August, and she passed away this time of year. So it would be 15 years ago. I guess 16 years ago, technically, right? Because he turned 16, so it would be 16 years ago. So 16 years ago. And I would say, so we were doing a lot of healing. We were doing healing songs. I think at this point we didn't think that she was going to have a complete recovery, but she was still indicating that she wanted to be here in life, though cancer had taken over in many forms in her body, but she was young and she had been healthy up until the point that this happened. I can talk about that in an individual video another time, but because there were it was a line long of from the beginning initiation point of what happened until she grew her wings, as I like to say, and flew into her next existence. Um, but during that time, we learned a song, and someone had said, "Oh, let's teach them the healing song." So I don't really even know what the name of the song is. We only did it in ceremony; it wasn't written down. We didn't really have a name for it other than the healing song, and I'm not even sure which tradition it comes from because there were people within our group that had been taught by many elders of different traditions, and um, I can't even think of one other person that was really native. That we were the lovers of earth and lovers of people, but we in our DNA probably none of us had Indian DNA, and DNA along those bloodlines. But in any case, this is a song that we got together and we sang and we learned how to send like you would say a prayer, or you would send somebody a card or flowers. So we did this healing vibration. This song is called the Healing Song. And there was only one time that it was taped. There was a class one time, and at the end of the class we said, why don't we send this to our dear sister as she's, going through this transition, and we don't know if she's going to make it or not, but let's just send her this for however this will assist her, whether she's staying, whether she's leaving, whether she's just deciding. It wasn't determinate. I mean, we didn't demand that a certain outcome be done. We only gave love and said for whatever it is that you need to do, which I think is so important for healing, and oftentimes very difficult to do and challenging because you want people to stay, but maybe that's not what's best for them. So being self-sovereign too is understanding that what's best for you is not always best for your loved one, and vice versa. And what's best for your loved one is not always best for you. And so what we do within the community that we're creating together, and the invitation goes out, is to, again, that would be another thing, is to make sure that whatever we're engaged in is beneficial for us first. If it's not beneficial for us, you could always ask to say, is there something that I can do in me to change this so that it would be beneficial? And if not, then you just choose something else. And don't feel guilt about it, and that you feel okay with it. I think I've an example of that, what comes up before I get to the song, is that as a part of the community that I was in, I loved being a volunteer. I loved helping set up and clean up and providing food. I loved there to be there to answer questions. I loved there just to give my love and attention and spirit to all these people who were learning wonderful things for their health and their happiness and their work and getting along in the world. And I loved being in the energy of the teacher and the people and the community, until it was no longer that kind of energy, right? But during that time I did. And so one thing that we did is we had a dedicated staff, and you had to be chosen to be a part of the staff. You couldn't just be a volunteer, because there were a lot of things that we did together as a group that other people, they wouldn't know, they weren't privy to, but there were other things that were asked of us, like it was mentioned and asked of us that we expect that when you are serving in this community, that you are setting aside any of your own prejudices, and that in your own mind, when you are there, you are thinking about them. You are thinking about the service, you're thinking about what's being taught, and that you're supporting it. Then any of your thoughts and concerns about the day, any disagreements you have, that there's no judgment that's placed on those individuals that are coming in. Even if you have a personal relationship with them outside, even if the package they're in is something different, or their personality is rough or rugged, you don't meet them being rough or rugged. You meet them being who you are. You meet them being, we learn many cleansing techniques, many mantras, and everybody, it was important that we learn everyone's names. It was like expected of us, absolutely, and that we made sure that everybody got our attention, that we made sure that we invited everybody in, and that we were attentive, that we were a cohesive group, that we worked together, that we didn't have any disagreements amongst ourselves during our interactions, that those were to be worked out, right? That kind of thing. So, but other people didn't know that. They didn't know what was going on, because you should just come. You should just come and feel really good. You should just be able to talk to everybody. You should feel really welcome, because you come in with your karmas. You come in with we don't know how people were treated in other places. They have to be free to be that person and personality and not be judged. So I really loved that aspect of it. So once a month or even once a quarter, we'd sit down and say, okay, these are the classes that are coming up. Who's going to be staffing them? And so, which was nice because we were all together for the staff meetings. We all got to talk about who's going to do what. And of course, the person who was, in charge, or the leader or the head of this, would also be mindful about who's working together. And, everyone had to be trained on all the different aspects of what into supporting classes and reaching out and marketing, every little aspect of it. And again, mind you, this is all volunteer, but we were there for the experience. We were there. This is like once again for world peace. There was a particular center meditation that was given freely, that was sent in a CD form given to the world. That every Friday we did this meditation, myself and my partner and our family, including my sister in love. We all did a meditation every Friday for 10 years. There were 4 of us, 4 women, who started the group. There were 3 of us that were independent facilitators of the group, and you had to be a certified meditation person to be able to do this, because the person who did the meditation would send us the energy, and we also had to do it at the same time it was being done at the central location, right? It was called explain to us. We didn't know what this was or have a sense of what this was, but considered it to be a pipeline. And so while the leader was doing this meditation in one place, then it had to be done exactly at the same time in the other places. Then she had to know it had to be a certified facilitator, at least one, that did the group, so that all that energy, right, could be sent out in unison and cleansed and lifted together at the same time. It could not be done at other times as a certified facilitator, and I actually forgot about that. But we did that for 10 years. There were times in which the very first many years, the 3 of us were there all the time. There was, again, 4 of us. Was one person did not want to become a facilitator, but was there every week. So I definitely honor her. So there were, like I said, there were 4 of us, 3 facilitators. We did this in the same location. Really grateful for the space. It was a donation-based meditation, and people really loved it. So anyway, as being a facilitator for this meditation for 10 years, and also for being on staff for more than 10 years, about 14 years actually, 7, so 7 in the metaphysical high command place, 14 years in this particular organizational, what have you, tribe, I'll call it. And so when we came together, we did things the traditional Native American way, from what I understand and what we were taught. So one of the things, like I said, getting back to the story about this is actually about my sister-in-law, and that she was going through this place of transition. This is the time, I'm recapping now. This is the short version of the recap. This time of year right now, beginning of February, was the time in which she had made her transition. Her birthday was February 4th. My other sister-in-law, who had passed just a year prior to her, her birthday was August 4th. And of course, my birthday is July 4th. And so it was kind of special that we were all the 4s. 444. Yeah, it was really sweet. So anyway, so her birthday is coming up this week as well. So this year, I really, again, the universe has switched things up on me in a good way. Another transition is coming up, and it's been communicated to me that, it's not only with COVID, but COVID was not helpful. 2020, moving into 2019, 2020, and I don't think we've ever really come out of that spinning, that downward spiral, not from our own, not from anything that we did that caused that, not from any of our own resistance to life, but because we ourselves individually have been so impacted by the chaos, and out of chaos can come great things. It's the quickest way for things to change is to have chaos, right? But it's not pleasant. You have to learn to move with it and ride with it, and self-examination and moving forward are really important. I found really vital. So many big things came out of that. I'll say too. It's like the big, like here's some pluses. Like this has been the kind of the stream of February is taking big things in life that have been challenging and difficult and draining, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually charged, inspirationally charged. Take a look and see how we came out from a caterpillar to a butterfly. I want to say those are caterpillar experiences and moving us into a butterfly. Okay, so let's say things that we've experienced or within my family's experienced around my loved ones or my clients are losing jobs, and not from their own doing, not because they did something that caused this, but because of the economy. Mostly because of the economy, or because the company was going out of business, or there was a change in direction, right? Um, that's probably the biggest thing, but there's like lost opportunity. There's people trying to climb the corporate ladder, and so they throw you under the bus, which isn't true, and yet somehow you get damaged from that, right? Or you don't have the opportunities that you would have had if that had happened. It's called destiny. Being derailed. Was your destiny derailed? Was your destiny gone dormant? It doesn't mean that it can't be reignited, but it is something that happened, right? So that's maybe your caterpillar stages. But if you will take your caterpillar stages and you can take, just like gold, right? Gold or a diamond, what are they created from? An external pressure that creates an internal beautiful gem, right? Think about, I guess, like coal turns into a diamond is another way of saying that. So that extreme pressure, there's that point of surrender where you stop resisting the life, you stop resisting what's going on, and you come back to yourself, and you get yourself together, and you accept the things that have gone on, and you say, today's a new day. I crossed this threshold into the future I was always meant to have. Even though those people in my neighborhood talked really bad about me and spread rumors about me because they needed to feel superior, and I lived through that experience, like, okay, well, I get a chance to be myself. I get a chance not to have to keep up any pretenses. I don't have to pretend to be in the cliques, right? I get to just be me and be who I am and show up how I show up. I am not bound by any role that they expect from me because they don't want any connection. And so at the end of the day, we realize what are the things that we gained from that. So those are taking like those obstacles or those things that happen and using them for our benefit. Again, I think that's what they're there for. It's what grows resilience and strength. And there are some people that talk about, do you learn more from your successes or from your failures? Well, I don't really love that 1,000%. That's I get the direction they're going in, right? I like to think of it like this. This is how I raised my children. We came up with the idea of creative genius, not us, but within our spiritual community, within my spiritual growing up when I was 25 years old. So we talked about a creative genius in our creative mind, and that it's in each one of us, and that every one of us can be like an Einstein, a Leonardo da Vinci, a Mother Teresa. It could be Golda Meir. I'm trying to think of the other women that I read about. There's many more. So there's another one that, of course, Sacagawea. I carry a Sacagawea coin with me and remind me of her pioneering spirit and the kind of energy and the person that I want to be. I don't know if you know her story. Maybe I might talk about it, but she is a very good example of taking a situation which was completely horrific and making a better situation. And where there was devastation, she decided to grow hope. She decided to teach people a different way and had a huge influence on many, many people. So that's what I want you again to consider. Consider from a caterpillar to a butterfly. And if you haven't, gotten the gifts that were in those packages that came as stones, people throwing stones at you. People can throw stones at you or people can throw flowers at you. It's up to you to decide what you can gain from that experience, right? And people throw stones at you, it's important to be self-reflective, but not self-destructive, and not put value in any negative value on what people are doing, but to have an honest reflection and awareness of yourself. Again, looking in your blind spot, being really honest, because I want you to be a part of the community, and being a part of the community means not putting yourself down artificially, not putting yourself up artificially, but knowing who you are and being willing to be that person. Because when we get into that space, we really need to be able to lean in everybody being honest with themselves and not bringing their triggers to the event, not bringing their prejudices, like no one ever listens to me, and my ideas are great, but then you got to put something behind it. If your ideas aren't great, I totally agree. This is your creative genius. This is what I was talking about. So your creative genius. So with my kids, when they were young, I would say, what is your $1 million invention? And they knew it wasn't so much about the money, but it was like taking a look at each one of them and how creative they are and what they want to do. Not what I want for them. Of course I want things for them, but what do they want for themselves and how can I support that? There are many things that I can do, but I didn't want to overly burden them with my thoughts and ideas and values and my childhood and all that drama, but to inspire them, to listen to them, to nurture. And at the end of the day, just know that, whatever they take from that, whatever becomes a part of them, that's on them, not on me. All I did was plant seeds, and whether those seeds take root or not is not on me. What's on me is where my own seeds that I plant take root and manifest. And in parenting, it can be really challenging. I'll say again that my children did not come in for a quote unquote normal everyday experience, and I hadn't either. And so it was a challenge. We were not always supported by well-meaning family members because, again, my husband and I, we were not rebels, but we were inventive, creative thinkers and wanted to do things differently. And neither one of us was, I would say, like a gregarious personality. We were more likely to say, my strength is listening and then making my own choices and not having to put it into people's faces or try to manipulate people, and including our children. So you have a creative genius, and maybe you haven't had that parenting yet. So this is your time to re-parent yourself. Okay, we talked about this the other day. Re-parenting your inner child. So let that child sing and bloom and be present. There's actually this other aspect I didn't talk about, which is like the inner teenager or the inner rebel. So the inner teenager questions the belief systems and the constrictions and the restrictions and the rules, but it's a disciplined rebel. When you say, oh, I can't do that, and it's that rebellious part of this is why can't you do that? Let's look at that. Maybe we've accepted a limitation that was true yesterday, but today is a new day. Our cells have rejuvenated. Some have died. Some have been born. Some are reaching maturity. This is the natural progress for things, right? The sun comes up in the morning. The sun goes down at night, unless you live in a place where that doesn't happen so many months of the year, like Alaska, right? But you get what I mean. Like there's this continuation of nature, this continuation that goes on within us, that goes on around us, and paying a little more attention to it, subtleties, the refinement. is what I would say would be that first step is, right? Like paying attention to that. I have different thoughts about myself today. I wonder, let me look and see how I feel about myself today. And let me see about what I'm doing with work. I'm not telling people I'm doing something different. I'm not telling people anything. I don't want their opinions. I don't need it. But I would like to see, I'm doing this little test myself to see, maybe they don't realize that I didn't realize how important it is to be grateful for what I have. And I didn't, maybe when I was a kid or an adult or a teenager or whatever, people didn't, I would say compliment, but it does start kind of with a compliment, but an honest goodness awareness of saying, I see you. I see this is different. I notice that about you. I enjoy that. I like that. You do you. Not because you need my noticing or my witnessing or my verification or my validation, but because it feels good to notice you. And noticing you takes nothing away from me. This is not a hierarchy. And you just go around and you start noticing things and you start emphasizing things that are going well. You start emphasizing changes and nuances and things, and it helps get you into that place where you're noticing the changes. Go out. Where I live, we're still in winter, but we're having some changes. It's really, and the earth is having its own march, right? It's called the March of the Ants. And it means that the earth, layers of earth have had frost and have gone dormant. The insects have gone dormant, the other layers. And now that marks the point in which it's becoming warmer on the inner layers, and it's going to move up until we have spring, and there'll be the thaw of the dirt, there'll be the waking up of the insects. So right now there's that march of that, they call it the ants, that are moving up towards Lunar New Year, which we just had on the new moon on Sunday. No, Friday. When was it? Thursday. On Thursday. So anyway, today's Groundhog's Day, by the way. We watched Groundhog's Day last night. So that's another one. So that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. Why? Because although it's not written the best, I think there needs to be criticism. Yeah, a little bit. It's like there was not a moment in which something happened in the storyline to put him to this loop of having the same day over and over and over again. And well, there's a better ending of how it ends. There's a good beginning of it. But basically, the premise is what happens is that until he learns the lessons that he needs to learn, he will just continue. He'll continue reliving the day over and over, although he has the awareness that what he did yesterday, that he could either, he does all kinds of things with it, but he does things like, well, what if I just ruin everything? And then he ends up in the bed. He ends up waking up the next morning with no repercussions. So, but anyway, it's interesting. You should watch it. We watch it every year. We own it now. So happy Groundhog's Day to you. So your creative genius, your disciplined inner teenager, your nurturing and benevolent nurturer, like your inner parent. And then another aspect or layer is your inner sage, your inner guru, your inner guidance system that has always the expanded vision, right? If the parent has the day-to-day, it's like a parent and a grandparent. So it's you reparenting yourself. It doesn't matter how your parents raised you or you didn't have parents, but it's that aspect of authority and nurturing and your day-to-day aspects of taking care of yourself. Then the sage would be like a grandparent, again, an elder. It doesn't matter if you really had one like this or not, but it's that aspect, the psychological and a loving aspect that you bring to yourself, your inner talk, your inner space, your inner communication. Why? For self-sovereignty as an adult, that you walk self-sovereign, independent, but connected to this world in a loving and a beneficial way. And also it's a way in order for sensitive people not to be pulled into narcissistic traps, to not form narcissistic bonds, to have healthy relationships, to be able to be independent, not to get into a place in which you have to be in a codependent relationship in order to live your life, right? So it starts in very intentional, and it doesn't matter when you start it. So, and the other aspect is the spiritual warrior. It's the warrior. It's like the Lord of the Rings. It's the warrior that turns into the healer. So, Eowyn, Eowyn, Eowyn is the name of a character in Lord of the Rings, and Eowyn comes from spiritual warriors, but Eowyn is the next generation that becomes a spiritual healer. So we're turning war and transforming it into healing. Okay, so that's what our warrior, yes, there can be times in which we have to hold a strong boundary. There are some times in which you have to do things that might be out of character and you're doing them in the moment, right? And you may have to, you see an animal or a child, somebody in the middle of the street, and you were there, and you were there to do something. You were there. I'm not saying to hurt yourself, but you do something that helps that other person, gets them out of that situation. Why do you know that's yours to do? Because you're there. That's why it's yours to do. It's not yours to say, oh, that's their karma, let them, oh, it's not interesting. No, yours is your karma. Your dharma is to be there as assistance. So we're coming up on 41 minutes here, which is a little longer than I thought I'd be here, but I just want to try to give some kind of structure because I have talked a little bit here and there. But right now I am adding on a little bit more to the inner family that I had talked about before, or what might be called subpersonalities. One of my passions and one of my gifts and skills is that I have been in many different forms of self-healing. I've been in many forms of peace projects, including not physically being in a prison, but we did a Chicago prison um, cleansing and meditation. And some individuals did go into the prisons in Chicago, and also to pray and to bring right thinking and right actions to the guards and the people that were in the prison who had been abusing the prisoners, to try to intervene and create a cohesive healing space for as long as that particular system existed. And there were many articles that were written in the newspaper about how things had turned around. And this was through prayer and invocation. This was not something that was known. It wasn't posted on the street or things like that. This is things we did in the quietness of our heart. We did together as a group, and it was one of the most powerful experiences that I've seen, because I would actually turn on the TV and see all the good things that were being done. There were actually guards and police that were being prosecuted for what they had been doing to the prisoners, and there was a turning around of that. So those were the kinds of things that I've been involved in, where don't take my word for it. I would always say to my metaphysical students, don't take my word for it. This is applied metaphysics. One of my teachers would say to me in the very early days, would say, think of chocolate cake, delicious and moist and tasty. If you don't like chocolate cake, think of your favorite flavor cake. But we happen to talk about chocolate cake. And she would say, you can think about that chocolate cake, but you can actually go out and experience that chocolate cake. What are those two differences? And so what we're talking about is, especially in metaphysics, there's a lot of, so much that has been written about metaphysics, and a lot of ours in those early days was derived from the Theosophical Society, Annie Besant, and the other part of it came from the Self-Realization Fellowship, the teachings of Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda. And I will just say that, unfortunately, when I taught these things at the time, people had taken information from these great teachers and this knowledge, including Edgar Cayce and others that I didn't know. and pick and chose what they wanted and put it together in a format and claimed it their own. Um, there was what we would have wanted to have happen as I went on to later teach these teachings and do be an advanced teacher, mentor, and a center director, is in the very early days, we said, because you say this as a young student before you get brainwashed, before you realize that people are going to take retribution on you if you ask a question. Now that you've been there, you should know better than to ask questions. But if you ask a question like, where does this information come from? They would say, oh, it's our information. It came from us. And then you would have students who would walk in the door and they'd be very excited. They'd be like, do you know what? I was at the Theosophical Society and I found this book and I found a paragraph from one of my lessons and I was shocked. But do you know this comes from blah, blah, blah? And honestly, I didn't know, because you were, again, I've said this before, you were not allowed to take in other information. There was probably never a time in which they're like, it was not written so that they could never say, oh, we never told you could do that. But it became, and this is the cultish behavior, it became an unwritten rule that if you didn't want the heat to come down on you, that if you didn't want to be humiliated in front of your peers and other people, then you towed the company line. And the company line was you didn't look at anything else, because then you wouldn't know anything else. And you could only be like a mushroom and sit in the dark and be fed what you were fed and know nothing else. And so I had students coming to me, and I was very innocent. I had no idea this was going on. I didn't know a lot of this information until actually I left. And that is when other people started giving me books. They started sending me information. Ledbetter, is it C? Ledbetter, like I have a bunch of their books. So I had a lot of documents where that information came from. And my students would come and say, look, I found this information, this is where it comes from. And then we would take that information like to my teacher, and I'd say, listen, this is my students show me this, and it's in here, and it's this. And my teacher would be like, yeah, I know that. I'm like, well, why can't they document it? I'm like, this, again, I just come out of college. I was in my, mid-20s, and I was like, come on, this isn't basic journalism, which is citing a bibliography, citing passages where they came from. They weren't even paraphrased. There was no way that information was hidden. It was taken directly. And so that was like one of the first learning experiences. And I'm like, I'm really upset about that. But I was like, it's out of my hands. The position that I was in was to bring it to my teacher's attention. And that was really all I could do with it. Because there was so much good in it that I had to take the bad with the good at that moment in time. I was aware of it. I wasn't trying to assuade it, but I also didn't have the authority or the power to change it at that moment in time, right? And I'm new and I'm starting all these things in my life and trying to do a restart. So then what happened was all of a sudden there was a rewrite of the lessons. And I do believe that at the time they had actually, the time that I started these lessons, I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit, but I think this is an important point. Again, being new, I didn't realize the person who had founded this metaphysical organization was dying. It was kind of kept from me, but kind of I was a new student, and it was like, how much relevance did that have? And so it wasn't communicated in case that might mean I would leave. The manipulation was just rampant. So anyway, I didn't know that. I didn't know they were still alive. And it's true, it would not have mattered that, really it wouldn't have mattered, because they really had no bearing on me, other than it had a bigger ripple effect in the community, which meant I was a new student. They were going through this place where their leader, so to speak, was dying. Although at this point in time, they wanted that person gone. Like, much like I would say most of it was much like when you see someone suffering, a loved one, you ask for them to go peacefully and quickly. So the focus is being out of the pain, and then you can deal with your own pain of them not being there, but it's more selfless to want them to move on. And so they wanted this person to move on. It was a very, so the organization itself was sad. It was in grief. And I didn't know that. I'm a new person. Stuff went on in my life. And within 8 weeks, 12 weeks of me being there, I had a major, significant traumatic event in my own family. So they were going through grief. I was going through grief. Although they didn't talk about their grief, it was felt. And again, it really probably isn't until this day that I'm realizing how much grief they were in. It's not an excuse. So then what happened is, just like you have a company where the founder dies, and then you have a battle for who's going to be in charge. There was not a clear-cut person who was going to be in charge. There was actually a group. And again, like many other cults, many other things that, LRH kind of stuff and Dianetic kind of thing happens, other cults have lost their leaders. Many faces, many images come to mind about that. Fill in your blank, even your own narcissistic family, community patterns. So, partners, patterns. So, there was this battle for who was going to be in charge because the group didn't want the group to be in charge. The group started rallying for who was going to be the leader, who was going to be the CEO, who was going to be the president, who was going to have the final call, because they didn't want a group. They wanted they didn't want a cohesive, collaborative unit. They wanted a dictatorship. And they, after that person left, after their leader died, transitioned, the dictatorship started coming up. And so this is the time in which I was in this organization. And so there was a lot of chaos. There was a lot of things going on. And so those lessons, quote unquote, material had been rewritten. And so they did take a lot of what was written in those original lessons that I received and changed it. So that meant the lessons or the information that I was teaching from in week to week, lessons, written material, and exercises, it changed. And it changed in a way to be able to take, because there were journalists involved in this, take that information and paraphrase it. How can we give the essence of what it is and paraphrase it? Again, there was not any kind of acknowledgement or even quotes really given that seemed significant from those places where they actually came from. Again, so there again, it's like if there's the original copy of the hieroglyphics and somebody says, "Oh, I know, I'm going to interpret that." Every time they interpret it, it loses its meaning because it's a copy, or because the person that did the information didn't have the consciousness, the awareness, the inner workings to be able to translate that accurately. And sometimes there's information that's changed purposely to be inaccurate so that it favors the person writing it, right? So you think about history favors the winner, because the winners get to rewrite history. And then we look at the history, or like, oh, well, that's the history. Like, no, it's not. It's a mystery. The history is a mystery because it was written and changed by the individuals who won, who dominated, who were domineering, who were more aggressive, who were more, masculine, and we're all feminine and masculine in nature, who annihilated, who took down, tore down, eliminated. And now this is what their agenda is. So is it the truth? No. Is it history? Well, it's revisionist history, perhaps, but it's not accurate history. So, oh my goodness. So that kind of gives you maybe some idea about when I say, I want you to think for yourself. This is an organization that I was in. One of the very first things, the very first classes they would say to you is, we don't want to tell you how to think. We want to teach you to think for yourselves. And that was true in the first 24 lessons. But then after that, you had to become a teacher in order to move into the second set or the second series. And on some levels, that made a lot of sense. I always wanted to be a teacher. I was kind of I was a teacher. In business, I was a trainer, and that was sort of teaching. I did volunteer work after I graduated from college. That time in between before I started my metaphysical studies and started teaching and living in a conscious community, teaching metaphysics full time. I had volunteered in an abuse, a women's place for abuse um, home, residential living, who'd been abused and were hiding. I'd worked for a humane society animal rescue, and during that time, plus I also learned, was certified in teaching reading literacy to English speaking students, and I worked with a gentleman who wanted to be a firefighter, but he needed to improve his reading and comprehension in order to be able to go for that training. So those were the things that I did, coming into this. I really wanted to help the world be a better place. I didn't want to just read about it. I didn't want to fill my mind with philosophy and ideas, and the Theosophical Society is amazing, but you can go there and just read about it, or you can go there and actually do something about it. And what I actually came out of that is you can actually take that information and say, this is amazing and wonderful. What else is there? What else can we grow this information? That what they were dedicated to in Self-Realization Fellowship and some other places are dedicated to the growth of consciousness, the expansion of consciousness. So we're no longer talking about keeping up with the Joneses and doing what everyone else is doing and only thinking about surface things. And that most of us have recycling. I hope that everyone knows about recycling, and that you, even if your city doesn't recycle, that you have ways that you do recycle, reduce your waste, reduce the consumables that are coming in, reducing packages. There's all simple ways that we can contribute. And also composting, if that's available, or there are some places where they do have rodent problems, and so they don't allow people to compost. But even I've learned other ways of being able to compost plant material, even if you can't create a compost in your yard like we have, all right? Doing the things that you can do. So that's the difference between metaphysics, that's just, and philosophy, that's just thinking, and also just learning from other people's experiences, is actually having your own. So I'm more into now gardening, and we are guardians of the bees. We have a beehive. We do lots of amazing things with them. So actually, I should do my song, and then I should show the things. And so again, this is how I want you to empower yourself, and it starts with empowering yourself physically. It doesn't start, it just starts there. Like, you have to start there or not start there. Like, if you don't want to start there, you feel like your calling is to do super conscious meditation, and that you don't want to take care of the planet, or planting seeds and things like that, or just not what your calling is, well, that's probably, a good idea to make sure that every aspect of yourself, including the physical, is taken care of. And if you feel you're doing good with that, then maybe that is your calling for other higher levels of meditation, because we all have, some of us are building our awareness on the earth plane and moving into higher levels so that we can combine the two together. Some of us have had the higher levels of teaching and are coming back into the earth to care for it, so that we all can come together to realize that there is no hierarchy of super conscious and beyond super conscious, and the physical and the energetics of the physical, that it actually is all a part of a collective whole. But it is important for you have to decide what it is that you're going to do. And so this is what I've decided I'm going to do. And I've always been a kind of practical person anyway. I love this earth, I love this planet, and there's so many things that we can do in our own way. So, and the more inner satisfied we are, the less easy it is for people to manipulate us. The easier it is to calculate for truth, my truth, and how I live vitally today. And also the places in which I still need to grow my consciousness, or might be manipulated, or might manipulate, that kind of thing. So it's a part of the human experience. but to be aware of that human experience. So I'm going to end with the healing song. So I was talking about this healing song, and we learned in the ceremony. There was only one time in class that it was taped. And when I was reviewing my class tapes one day, I heard the song. I'd forgotten about it. It'd been a couple of years. We hadn't been doing the healing song because we didn't really have people that we were sending it to. So it kind of like went by the wayside. And I heard it on this tape, but now this tape is like a cassette tape, and we don't use cassette tapes or CDs, or I mean, we have DVDs, all that. I don't really even have access to. My early iPods, I converted it over, but then I never converted it to new stuff. So I have my old iPods, but they don't there. So I said, okay, well, this is a perfect example of, if you need information rather than looking in a book, why don't you ask yourself and ask for that inner information? And there's a sincere desire for it, and do the best I can with it. So I started singing some old traditional songs. I started singing my healing songs, and we, like I say, we take care of the bees, and I grow herbs and teas and smudging and all these different things I could talk about. I make salves with the beeswax and all kinds of amazing things. I have a couple of things I brought here today to show you, but all that to say that I really wanted that healing song. There's some things that had come up in my own life, and I really was thinking, oh yeah, that healing song. I will, and it's her birthday, and it's her healing, and so, oh, that's what happened. So what happened was, I had been looking for it a couple of years, or a number of years ago, a long time ago, maybe 8 years ago, and I couldn't find it. And my sister-in-law came to me in a dream, and she sang me the song. I'm like, that's it. It was the most beautiful moment. It was so precious. But it's not something that you can tell most people. I think, that doesn't happen. That's crazy, whatever. But she did come to me, and she sang me that healing song, and she showed me that we still are connected. So I carried it with me for a while, right? And then I went on to other spiritual things. And when you go on to other spiritual experiences, you do kind of have to set aside some things, because you can't do all the things all the time, and you have to dedicate yourself to some of the learning. It doesn't mean you can't ever pick it up, but it is one of the things that I did have to do, is set aside my native dancing and chanting and that, but kept some of the other aspects alive, like the teas and the gardening and the growing, and it took on a different kind of life. But I wasn't around people who were drumming. I wasn't around people who were singing, and I hadn't really gathered the space in order to teach that to people, right? I'd gone to some groups a couple of years ago, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, and so anyway, it kind of went to the wayside. But when I go to Sedona, I always bring my drum, and I always do my drumming, and so for a while I do keep it up. But like I said, the best thing to do is, if you drum and dance and those kinds of things, if you chant and sing and do art, is to create opportunities at least monthly, if not weekly, in order to do those together in a group, to keep that alive, to inspire each other, to learn new things, and to share it, right? So share your gifts and receive the gifts from others. So for about a week, I've been chanting. I've been, not chanting, but singing my native songs, and I've been just like listening with my heart. And like I said, in January, I had a lot of silence. Some medical things happened. Some spiritual things happened. It just told to me that I really needed to stop expressing outwardly. Actually, it was kind of inviting, like my family, once they got used to it, they kind of enjoyed it. They probably enjoyed it, but I enjoyed the solitude. I enjoyed having the peace after having had so many things go on in my life that were devastating in the past 6 months, and even my own health in the past 10 months. And finally, the beginning of January, I woke up pain-free. And I'm still so grateful for myself, for being persistent and being loving and kind, for all the physical therapy, for all the different things that I explored, and was able to release it. It was really powerful. So I asked about the healing song. I'm like, that reminds me, I love that healing song. I would love to do that healing song, just because I love the feel of it and everything. So I hadn't come across it. I'd listened for it. I'd been open about it, but I wasn't like too disappointed because I hadn't connected with it. And then 2 mornings ago, I woke up, saying my prayers, and I heard it, and there was a song. And when I went to bed at night, I'd been kind of a little bit putting on a little native song in my head, a gratitude song as I went to bed. And then when I woke up, my first consciousness, dawn of consciousness, I heard the song. This time, like I was singing it to myself. It didn't seem like someone was there like the first time when she was really there and present. Because after she passed, I had some really vivid healing experiences with her. Because, as I say, our relationship was complicated, very complicated. And so anyway, so she sang me the song. So then when I heard it, I'm like, what is that song? And I was like, I love it. But I was like, I don't think that's a song. It'd been so long since I'd heard it. And so then I was like asking myself, is this the song? Yes or no? Muscle testing myself. And finally I came to the conclusion that it was the song. So then I was like quiet and like listening to it inwardly. It's like, I want to listen to it because I want to be able to sing it. I want to be able to write out the words phonetically at least, and I want to be able to sing it. And so I've been practicing it, again, as it's been playing inwardly, and I haven't written it down. And so this morning, again, it came up, and the song was playing. And I was like, I don't feel ready to sing it. I would love to sing it. I don't feel ready. And so then I got my things together this morning, and I was like, I would like to do a 15-minute live, and we're at an hour. And we're at an hour. And I thought, all these different things I was thinking about what I'm going to do this morning. And then I was like, I'm going to start by singing it. So I guess I'm still have these things I want to show you, but without further ado, this is the drum that I made in class and learned all about it in a traditional Native way. And this was a card of my beautiful sister-in-law that is significant, that after her passing, that was one of the things that I found, and I can tell you that story another time. I also carry, I have sage that's blessed that I keep within my drum. Usually sweetgrass or tobacco is another thing, because this is a healing tool. This is a beautiful heartbeat of Mother Earth. And again, I'm just going to do this from my heart and practicing it. So I'm still practicing it, and the more that I do it and the more that I share it, the deeper it will get. So I would love to share this healing song with you. You could send it to yourself. I think would be a fantastic idea. How many times do we think about healing and prayer for other people? And there is a kind of a question out there that says, if you listed all the people you want to send healing to, how long would it take you to write down your own name? Right? And even though I know that, and even though I know that's the answer is, I literally do not put myself first all the time. So I want you to put yourself first, and I put myself first. And I'm going to do a little bit of the song, and then I'm going to show you some of the things that I do with connecting to the earth, and with not even just what we consider call Native American people here in the United States where I live, or the people of the earth, the Nede people, they call themselves, because they do not call themselves Native American. It's an old name. It's a dead name, right? It's a dead name. But if you think about connecting with the Aboriginals in Australia, that's probably not the name either. But we think about the rainforest, we think about Peruvians, and we think about those people, and we honor those beings who have come to this world to live in those communities, to keep those traditions going. Some of which still have not seen man, right? Have not, it's hard to imagine, but there are tribes that know about the modern world, and every once in a while we hear about people who are killed because they were invaded. They trespassed and were warned and disobeyed the warning. Um, but there have been other people who have come out. Even where I live, there was a gentleman that came out who lives in the rainforest, and he was a young child, and he was sent out in order to be able to negotiate peace, in order to be able to learn about the world, but essentially knew that he'd go back to his native tradition in order to be able to be a go-between so they could understand how they were going to continue to live their livelihood even in a world that had forgotten them. So we send this out to them and to all the people who protect the earth, all the people who love the earth, and all the people who don't protect the earth, who don't love the earth, who don't have an awareness and an ingrained importance of it, because we want everybody to come to heal, and everybody is important, and it is important that everybody come to their own understanding of this. So join us, one heart, one healing song for ourselves and for our DNA, our family, our ancestors, our loved ones, for all versions of ourselves in all dimensions of time and space, for all the people everywhere, the earth, the animal, the water, for the water, for the animals, and for the people, and for the mountains, and for the caves, and for the crystals, and for the plants, and for the insects, and for the lizards, and for the streams and the rivers, for the mountains, for the dolphins, for the whales, for the bees, all the insects and the butterflies, all the flowers, the plant life, all the kingdoms everywhere. Oh, hey, Najina, so this is not the healing song, but this is the song that's coming up. So it may change, and so sometimes that's what happens. And I do have people that are still asleep at my house, so I'm being quiet about this. So I'm going to try to listen, but I'll do a little bit, and then I'll end with my things to inspire you for your products. Oh, hey, Najina, why, hey, ah, well, hey. Oh, hey, Najina, why, hey, well, hey. Oh, hey, Najina, why, hey, well, hey. Oh, na hasha poya, hey, wa, che, well, hey. Oh, hey, Najina, wah, hey, well, hey. We're going to send it out to the water, to the earth, to the grasses, to the trees, to the people, to the air quality, to the water quality, to all the people who've been affected by fire, by storms, who've been misplaced, that they are not alone, and that we are here together. Oh, hey, Najina, wache, well, hey. Oh, hey, Najina, wache, well, hey. Oh, na hoshima wate cha cha, hey, well, hey. Oh, hey, Najina, wache, well, hey. I'll end with a thank you song, but I wanted to show you a couple of things. And again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for sending that out to anyone, any place. You can replay this for yourself, for all people, for whatever comes to your heart, to do that in that moment, right? So I did talk about our bees. This is just a little ceramic thing. remind us of our bees. And this is some honey that we get, and so we do a lot of things with the honey for medicinal purposes. We're natural beekeepers, so though even though we do have kind of a traditional looking hive, um, if you don't believe in honey and you don't believe in there's a good way to do that, then I'm not trying to change your mind about that, because I am aware that there's some people that feel like that. Um, but I do a kind of a spiritual type of beekeeping. My husband has been the main beekeeper, and this year I'm stepping more up again and calling in our next hive. But meaning that we don't keep the queen from going anywhere commercially. What they will do is take and let the queen only be in the bottom, where she can lay her eggs and create her team. And then the top, if you ever see a hive, the top boxes or the top honey doesn't have any cells in it that would have babies, and so you can process that honey in the wax. So, but what my husband has always done is he decided he did not want to do that, which would mean there were some cells, because the queen usually lays her eggs in the very center cells. So even though you might have 10 across, maybe the 3 in the middle, maybe 4, and so you'd have less amounts of honey, right? But he never wanted her not to have some place she wanted to go. So he's always, that's beautiful. It's natural. Generally our bees do go out at a certain time that nature calls them and says you're needed, or that there might be danger in the area, and so they've left willingly and gone out to strengthen the genetic pool of the bees, with the wild bees in our area, is what they have always done. And we've always intuitively gotten the bees that are going to help enhance, not decimate the wild bee population in our area. So this time I've started doing an invocation, and I actually also have what's on my YouTube channel. It's called the Bee Ceremony, where I do that every day. I go out into my yard, or I set up my ceremonial space, and I do a bee and flower meditation to help support and send out the vibration and the healing for the bees. And this year I have started, just a few weeks ago, started a new invocation to call in a new queen and a new hive to work with me and to work with the areas that we have here. And we are looking again at purchasing land for our next step to live sustainably and to create communities, to be a community builder. And a part of that is really taking care of the earth and the beautiful flowers and the bees and the pollinators, for sure. So that is my little reminder of our natural bees, natural beekeeping. We call ourselves the bee guardians. And so this is honey that I infused with some of the herbs that we grow, and I mark what they are. But anyway, these are just some ideas with some things that you could do. The honey something that you buy in the store that's marketed as honey, there have been a lot of stories about them really not being honey. They're really being more like sugar water, and they're still calling it honey, but it's coming in from other countries. So, of course, a lot of people find out about honey, the benefits of honey, because their children or themselves have allergies. And so their allergist, their doctor will tell them, find as local as you can grown honey, because that is like that homeopathic, it's the antidote to the allergies in the area. And that's a very Native American tradition. It's people that live indigenous. I'll use indigenous people that have lived in harmony with the earth, so that the earth would provide them, even if there was something that was maybe poison. There's a reason why poisons are in the environment and detoxing are needed, but then also there's the antidote that's in the environment. So we live in the environment and being out, and they're being irritated, and they're saying, here's the antidote, here's the solution, here's the herbal, quote unquote, medicine, remedy in your environment. And you can infuse it with all kinds of different things. Now, this our particular honey, it's not like we have, so if we had an orchard and in that orchard we had, apple trees, and so we have apple blossoms, then we could say, oh, or orange blossoms, oh, this honey comes from orange blossom. You could say that because bees fly, they could fly very far away, but usually stay within a certain radius. So let's say I have acres and acres of apple, and that's why that they, hopefully they're being honest with you. They can tell you it's it's a blossom from whatever tree it is, but ours is combined, and this one is darker. So I'll also just say that, so what's going to happen is the honey is never the same, right? The changing of the environment is going to be different in the different times of year. So the earlier in the season it is, typically the lighter color it is. It's like a dessert honey is what they call it. Later on in the season, in the fall, where there's less available flowers, there tends to be a change in the color. It's more of an amber, and there's a list they have that you can tell. Take your honey and take a look at the different shades and see the amber and what it's good for. But this particular one, I actually infused it afterwards with rosemary or sage or oregano or lavender, whatever I've grown in my yard, because I know how that's being taken care of. And I work with the beautiful earth angels, the guardians, the fairies and gnomes, all the beautiful plant life that supports the growing of these things. So that's where that comes from. And in addition to that, we also have a healing artwork or sigil, which we put on top of our honey. And what that does is that ensures the potency, the energetic potency of the honey that's available, but also it works on another level, which is it helps all honey everywhere be raised to its highest level. So again, that's something you have to experiment with. Take honey from the store, use your dowsing, take honey that's grown locally, and you can get your power sigil from me, and you can do the bee ceremony. It's free of charge. Again, I'll see if I can post the link in this video, but it's got a beautiful music that was created that carries the vibration, and you can just play the music every day. I also have a visual of our bees and some of the sacred art that call upon the beautiful earth angels that do this with us. And just for kicks, this one was available. So this jar is, one of my children decided that they wanted to grow ghost peppers, which are extremely hot. And so I have a few jars of ghost peppers I haven't done anything with, because in order to open this jar and process them, I have to wear a mask. I have to wear a face mask. I have to cover myself because the powder could get into my eyes and nose and mouth and cause major disaster. And but it is good for healing, and it is good for some spices used in a little bit. Detoxing on a regular basis, a little bit at a time, is better than having like a big detox. And this is some of the reasons in which our body has colds and flus and tries to raise the temperature in our body, so that within a certain level, not a risky level, in order to cleanse and burn off the things that we come in contact with, right? Like if the higher our immune system is, the better and less susceptible we are to the germs and viruses and bacteria that's in our environment. And that's a natural process. It's only if it goes too high for too long that then you need more assistance, but doing it on a regular basis. And this is one of the things that in my group that I had been a part of, that we were taught how we were doing group cleanses. And that group cleanse included prayer or invocation. It included not watching TV. It included more spiritual invocation exercise. It included things like cleaning and sending energy support to the prison systems, and supporting those prison guards who were protecting and doing the right thing, and there were other individuals who were doing the wrong thing, and the people who were were being overpowered, who were wanting to do the right thing, were not reporting on the other people because of fear of themselves and their family being hurt, right? So these were some of the things that we did. So you have to have like your passion project. You have to do what you want to do. I ask people to write out 10 things they want for themselves. It could be a need list and then a desire list, and then 10 things you want to bring to the world. And it doesn't matter. It could be world peace. It could be as simply as having a cross guard at a school doing their job, um, or having a stoplight or a stop sign at this intersection, which tends to be erratic. You know, could be many, many different things. It could be anything. But again, part of this vision and really bringing this community forward is that you have to decide what it is that you want. You can't just go along with, oh, that sounds good. Like, no, you have to say, I'm going to be accountable for this. This is something that I want to bring into my life. And I am going to have to look at myself and say, okay, that means that I'm going to have to change. And probably I've been asking for something outside of myself to help me create this change, but I'm going to choose to create it within myself. I'm going to take the outside as inspiration, and I'm going to take the inside as my job. It's my garden. It's my thing to do. So yeah, so I'll have other videos where I do some other things. The things that I have in the background is one of my walls that I have of support, and I can go through. But it's like my empowerment. It's like I got your back. So when I come and do these things that I want to talk to you about, I have some idea, but a lot of it is inspiration, and we're really building a foundation here. What can I offer to you today to move forward and be meaningful for those of you that are going to watch the video, and meaningful to go back and revisit some of these things. We have to give context. That's a big thing that's been coming around with my teenager and my older young adult, about talking about context and sharing our views of the world. And you need to have something, you don't have the contextual background in order to be able to understand each other. And how can you bring that? So it's not a quick thing, right? It's not an overnight thing. And some of it comes from some deep trauma that we've experienced. So we don't want to inflict more trauma, but we want to understand that it's there. We want to understand there are ways of moving forward and freeing ourselves, experiencing that. So I'm going to close out with our one last song. I'm also going to, I'll show you this. So this is part of my healing process, or sending healing energy to my clients and to my loved ones. And so this is my actual business card, and that has the, I know it's a big glare, it has the my mandala on it. And so I have a video, but I'll probably make a new one where I put my client's name or picture underneath my mandala and send them the healing. And then I send a picture of that to them so that they too can connect. Much like I have this very up here, I have this picture of, can you tell what it is? There's water, is the mountain. It's not in the United States. It's Mount Fuji. I have a number of pictures of Mount Fuji in Japan, and I connect with the water and the mountains. And so for me, that's inspiration, and for me, I connect with so many different things that means to me, right? So anyway, each one of them means something to me, and I encourage you to make a board or a poster board. One could be one picture, it could be a collage of what's important to you, that empowers you, that sustains you, that nurtures you, that creates a place of belonging and welcome to you. So this song is a thank you song. I hope this comes up pretty clear. We'll see. So I'm going to start, and you will notice, listen for it. There will be a part in which I go from like being self-conscious to going into really being a prayer. I notice it. I know my voice gets clearer. It gets not necessarily louder, but it goes probably a little deeper. So this song is a thank you song. That's just thank you, thank you, thank you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being in life. I hope that you have, the best kind of day that you could have. I hope that you take a look at your blind spots. I hope that you commit to changing one thing and not taking on too many things to change, something that you have within your control. I hope that today you look and see and expand your awareness and know that you cannot ask somebody to go further to expand their awareness outside of their comfort zone, and that's the same thing for you, because that actually creates more of a duality in our life when we try to be someone or be somewhere that we're not, because we are exactly where we are meant to be. And your body is exactly what yesterday's food and exercise and nurturing, or lack of it, or stress created. But today is a new day, and we accept and love ourselves where we're at, and we know that where we're at is a place that we can always move forward. So let that day be today. Trying to get this a little deeper, a little more rooted, a little more grounded, not so up in the air, but grateful for all of it. Pila Maya, Pila Maya, Pila Maya. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Thank you from the top of my heart. Thank you for all those that have come before me. Thank you for all my challenges. Thank you for all my gifts. Thank you for everything in between. Until we meet again. To my beautiful spiritual family, my loving family, my light family, my humanity family, my diverse family. I love you, and I'm so grateful that we are here together. Aho, Matakwiyasa. That means to all my relations.